take a punt out of necessity situation on him. So I don't want to criticise them too much for that signing. And Cervelli obviously is a decent in-season recruit as well for Hull FC. But that's what Sarah's point is. Like, Pearson came out, said all these things sort of in the heat of the moment after some bad defeats, and it feels.
And
like...
I think I said at the time, I remember doing a stat show, and I think I said at the time it will be interesting to see what really happens and how much it was the outburst and how much he's able to actually back it up with ripping up contracts in reality. And lo and behold, that hasn't happened.
Yeah. That's all I can say. And I can totally, I think it's right for Hull fans to be questioning that, because it feels like they're right back where they were in August last year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They are getting hammered by Warrington. That's right back where they were.
They've gone through their little positive run and they're back to square one.
We will see, yeah. Okay. Mark G said, unprofessional Hull performance. 20 minutes in and Hull fans are blaming the ref. That's the problem over there. It's a Warrington or Saints year. Can't see everyone else bridging the gap, to be honest.
Interesting. Tom Andrews from the other side of the city gets in touch to say, if someone had told me before kickoff that Hull team would take a complete and utter shafting, I would have expected it to be KR away at the best team in the league, not the perennial top 4 club at home against some bottle jobs. Hull had no go forward, no creativity, not even from Nugget Slut Kelly. I mean, that sounds like a specialist publication, doesn't it? They got totally stunned by Stone Cold Blake Austin. Very good. And Tikka Masala walked through their Poppadom defence using Page's epic banter from last week. The FC shop has 63% off dummies, but have sold out as Jordan Thompson and Mark Sneed bought them all.
Page said, one word, embarrassing. I could go on naming a list of injured players, but they don't call me Tom. Question is, where do we go from here? Yes, we have players out, but we wouldn't have beaten Warrington with a full strength squad. They were too big, too fast, and we were just shit. Time to forget it and move on and see what next week brings.
I'm going to give this week to Tom, I think, for comedy value.
No, I enjoyed the "but they don't call me Tom" line. Yeah.
Oh.
We've still got another game to come yet of those two.
At Mike Dodd 22 says, Warrington fan says, Lee Radford, Dean Windass, Sarah Mackenzie, your boys took one hell of a beating. You forgot Adrian Durham.
Yeah, I would have loved that one in there, to be fair.
Yeah. Wire eased past a clearly weakened Hull side with Blake Austin finally getting into full steam. Don't know what the newborns of Hull are going to do, because I think the Hull players bought all the dummies in the local area. Hey, another one who comes out of that one.
AK Steel 69 said, went to this game more in hope than expectation, but the expectation was that Hull would put up a fight. This was a disgraceful.
From what evidence were you getting that from?
This was a disgraceful performance, and the pack bear the brunt of the blame, despite our makeshift left edge getting shredded by Austin's power and the international men of mastery.
There's a title for you.
Manu, Mini and Paya are a year beyond their use-by date, and Pearson needs to join the marquee club to challenge for trophies in the future.
Always in our shadow with a well-rounded view. What a crock of shit.
Genghis Campbell said, I was feeling low after a hard day at work, but then watched this game and my new mantra is, it could be worse, you could be Lee Radford.
Joshua's granddad. And look at the timesheets, and you feared the team sheets, and you feared the worst. 15 minutes in, FC had put the cue on the rack. Unfortunately, Shaw insisted on carrying on and refused to declare. Soft centre, no pace on the flank, and a defensive fullback who couldn't organise an orgy in a brothel. Yet let blame Austin looking like the player he believes he is. Players out of position doesn't help. Why run a reserve if not going to use them? Good point.
Yeah.
That's because you got 76-year-old Gareth Ennis taking up one of your reserve slots.
Yep. Mark W said, you can't take much away from Warrington as they did everything right, but a total defensive collapse from Hull is the main story here. Some absolutely shocking decisions and effort made it too easy for the visitors.
Paul Chamberlain says, well, at least Hull would have agreed to a withdrawal agreement on Friday. Because that was a non-stop 80-minute shafting.
Dan Cartilage, nice of you to get involved. Dan said, Blake Austin, have my babies, and I don't even have any. It's always our year, and I mean, it is. Believe me, it is. Getting carried away over in Warrington, aren't they? Nice one, Dan.
We shall see come the end of the year. We shall see. And finally, James Lappin finishes off with always our year, but it's our, not our. It's just, you know, if you're gonna do it, you at least do it properly.
I mean, at least that reads right. You know, we've had some others.
This is true.
When we've been going through that, we've almost focused a little bit on Hull, which isn't surprising because there was more Hull fan reviews or anti-Hull fan reviews than there were Warrington ones, and the Warrington ones were just pure euphoria of giving children away. So I'm not going to talk too much about Hull from that game because they didn't have any star players. They didn't produce many highlight moments.
Before we get into eulogising Wire, let's just give a moment to Robert Hicks, who I thought did really well to keep this game under control, not let it get out of hand, and in particular in the first half, where he just very calmly and just said play the ball. There was some shenanigans going on where I can't remember who it was trying to earn a penalty out of absolutely nothing. And the referee just stood up very calmly and said, play the ball.
Yeah, and he did.
Very clearly.
He actually did what we've all been calling for, didn't he? You know, what me and Sarah talked about 2 weeks ago, what Sarah's game review prompted us to speak about last week. And maybe it came back to bite Hull a little bit because one of them was right on the try line when Mark Minicello did it. But he pulled people up for stepping around the marker, then trying to play the ball into the marker.
Yeah.
Which I think is what we all, as the wider SLP family, want to see from our match officials. So yeah, credit to him. I agree. It meant by using his voice, he was able to control the game. Didn't have to resort to lots of penalties because the players heard and respected that. And I think that's, as players, that's all you can ask for. If you've got a referee who's giving that coaching and telling you where the line is, and then you can't argue when you've stepped over it. It's like, look, I've told you what it was. Move on. And the penalty
as a
count
player,
was actually 9 conceded by Warrington, 4 conceded by Hull. From what I'm looking at here. So what I would say about Hull is there were a few players that I felt gave up. I mean, I know they were getting hammered really quickly. They were 5 tries down after, I think, 20 minutes and 6 sets of possession from Warrington. So it's not going to feel great. But the lack of effort when they dropped ball for Charnley's, I want to say, second try, when Griffin just absolutely spaffed a perfectly catchable ball where he was under no pressure whatsoever. But the lack of effort of anyone to try and even pretend that they were running back in, apart from Scott Taylor's little loose arm that ended up hitting Charnley in the face, but hey, something or nothing, it wasn't meant to do that.
And it's always amusing.
It's
always amusing to see Charnley get hit in the face as well.
But other than him, who kind of made a gesture of going back towards where the player was, some of them turned and started walking away, away from where they needed to be, and was so disconsolate at that point. And I just think that, Leeds have taken some beatings this year. Wigan have taken some beatings this year. I don't think I've seen poor attitude. I've seen lots of poor effort, poor application, poor intensity, but I've not seen poor attitude to that extent. And
it comes back to what we were saying earlier.
But Wakefield didn't do that the week before against Warrington, did they? They made a game of it. They entertained us. They gave us some great viewing pleasure. But I want to talk more about Warrington.
It comes back to what we said before, that it's the same group who had showed that awful attitude last year when they were losing. It's that same group that are still putting in consistently rubbish performances for FC. So that's why you're getting the same results, because you're using the same materials to try and do it.
Yeah, I suppose that's a fair shout. I want to talk about Warrington, though, because they were fantastic in this game. Good. It was an 80-minute performance from them, which, we've all been questioning, rightly so, because
have faded away
Wigan with a better team
end.
against them in the second half 2 weeks ago. Certainly Wakefield with a better team last week. You know, they've had a few games where they've let people back into things, not you know, sort of took the foot off the throat, as it were, or what have you. And in this game, they definitely didn't do that. And you can look around the whole team, and you know, the people on the stats sheet there that we talked about, the top 4 stat performers, there's only Blake Austin who we're going to talk about in the star performers. You know, there's a player with a hat-trick there, there's a player with 2 try assists there, and another player with 2 tries, and they're not anywhere near the best players for that side this week. I mean, Darryl Clark is... I think he was playing this well last year. It just wasn't quite recognised as much for it, potentially.
I'll tell you what's made the change for Darryl Clark is his pink pants that we got to see on Saturday. I think
he's got off the feet.
There's something about these pink pants that's magic, because we got Fafita in them and he was having absolute barnstorm when he was wearing them. Clark was wearing them, as we saw when his shorts came down on Friday night, so it's pink pants, kids.
Attention for that. But I think the thing is, you gotta say, I think he was brilliant last year. I actually think he's been really good apart from his first 5 or 6 months at Warrington. The only thing is, we all expected him to be perfectly suited to Tony Smith's dummy half dominated, off the cuff dominated game, because he's so fast. Got a really good fend. He's really quick thinker as well. So we all thought he'd be really well suited to that, but it turned out that he probably wasn't, because teams could start to defend that area of the pitch more against that Warrington side. Whereas now, Warrington are spreading things out so much more that you get a situation where Darryl Clark picks up the ball on the last tackle and there's no defenders in front of him between him and the fullback in the goal line, because Warrington are playing like so much variety in the way they're playing. You know, you think about Austin's try where Hill had made the pass inside to Ratchford, and then you think about the one where Hill had offloaded it to him, and then you know you've got the forwards interplaying. You've got Cooper being just a phenomenal offloader. You've got Ben Curry playing passes like halfbacks. He wasn't even needed to do anything like that in this game. He was basically, him and Jack Hughes were almost passengers in this game, when they've been brilliant for the last 3 weeks for Warrington. And I just think that they're doing a lot of good stuff with the ball, and in this game as well, they defended really well. I mean, if I get onto my highlight moments, one of them's got to be the tackle on Scott Taylor when, you know, there was only a few minutes left in the game. For all intents and purposes, it was over. You didn't really need to put in the extra effort to stop him at that stage. It wasn't like you were defending a clean sheet, because that had gone some time before when old Slut Nugget went over. But the way that they rallied round and held him up, I just thought was really, you know, really strong indicator of this team being together. And, you know, I mean, if we get to other highlight moments, I suppose the bridegroom, his try straight after half time. I mean, if there was any doubt at half time at 34-6, at 40-6, just after, when Murdoch Masilla powered off the absolute ocean of space that Stephen Ratchford was allowed to run into, then
I think Ratchford had a good game. He contributed quite well.
He had a good game, but he's nowhere near my top 3. That's the thing. I know other people had him in the top 5. I think he was in the top 3 votes for the Man of Steel. But yeah, the quintessential moment of this game, and I think it showed everything from both sides probably, was Blake Austin's hat-trick try, where he ran 50 metres pretty much through 3/4 of the Hull FC side. And, you know, absolute prime Blake Austin. It's got to be one of the tries of the season so far, I suppose. So,
I mean, I quite liked his first one, and just the individual skill he showed for that, the wriggle, the sort of the throw through, and just finding that thing. I did think.
Don't get me wrong, he didn't score a bad try, Tim.
He did definitely need bigger studs, though. He did fall over at least 3 times. I saw he slipped. So he definitely needs to think about wearing some longer studs.
I think the Wire fans will take the try to fall down ratio on that one, won't they? Though.
I'll tell you who else again wouldn't even make your top 3, but had a really good game again, was Mr. Accused himself, Jack Hughes, because I thought he just offered that extra threat.
Well,
and
I
it
just think he was solid in this game. Though that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. You're right. Warrington. Obviously, when you score 60 odd points, you've played well. Yeah, I just think Blake Austin, though, people are obviously talking loads about him after this